Thanks, I owe you one.
No problem. Just stick with the script. You may be okay.
All right. Hey.
A plea deal or don't we?
Yeah. As a matter of fact, the DA just signed on. The judge, however, may be a slightly harder sell.
Meaning what?
Meaning that as long as we stick with extreme emotional duress, you're going to be just fine.
Emotional duress? As in what, I was going crazy? No, Jack, I knew exactly what I was doing to Greenlee, and I will admit that to the judge. I wasn't out of my mind when I set up Greenlee, and I'm not going to say that I was.
Kendall, nobody's asking you to. This is just a technicality. But let's be honest here. You were very close to your breaking point.
I was clear and rational.
How are you rational? Finding in the park with Spike and the gun, that's rational?
That was part of my plan.
Your plan was insane.
Well, no more than yours was.
Telling Greenlee that her embryos were still viable was a bad idea. And yes, maybe I feel badly, maybe I feel guilty about it. It doesn't matter, it's in the past. We can't change that, but we're not going to throw away our future.
Okay, Zach, how can I make you understand how I feel?
Well, honestly, it's going to be a little bit difficult because you're not making a whole lot of sense right now, Kendall.
Okay, see, you of all people, I thought that you would understand.
What do you want me to say? I don't like what you did any more than you do.
You weren't yourself.
Okay, well then who was I?
You were a woman at your breaking point.
Who was terrified that Greenlee was going to harm our son. That's who you
You
were.
guys, listen, I'm tired of lying, okay? I'm tired of making excuses for myself. I'm not going to lie to the judge.
You're going to say whatever Jack tells you to say.
No, Zach, I'm sorry, but I won't.
You're going to go to prison, Kendall. All right, and what about Spike? Hasn't he been through enough? I mean, what do you want him to do? Say goodbye to his mother, Kendall? Is that what you want for our son?
No, of course not.
And then what?
No.
Of course not. What do you want to do? You going to raise our boys from a prison cell? Jack, little help, please.
Kendall, I would suggest you listen to them, because here's the fact. Without this plea, you're looking at 20 to 40 years.
Did you hear that? This is not a game.
Just think about what you're doing, Kendall, okay? Just think about it.
If Greenlee were convicted, how many years? How many years would she get?
Kendall, that didn't happen, and it's not going to.
Jack, you're her father. Remember what I did. Greenlee was a fugitive because of me. She nearly died because of me.
Let it go. It's over.
No, it's not over. It will never be over for Greenlee or me until I stand up and own what I did. I've got to clear Greenlee.
Kendall, you're not going to clear Greenlee by pleading guilty. What you need to do is say that you were...
Say that I'm crazy?
All rise. This is the Criminal Court of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. The People versus Kendall Hart Slater. Judge Angela March presiding. This court is now in session. Be seated.
Will the people please state the charges?
False reporting to law enforcement, misdemeanor in the second degree. Tampering with physical evidence, misdemeanor in the second degree. Burglary, felony in the first degree. Criminal trespass, felony in the third degree. Forgery, misdemeanor in the first degree.
Kendall Hart Slater, do you understand the charges against you?
Yes, I do, Your Honor.
And how do you plead?
Your Honor, if I may.
I plead guilty.
Your Honor,
No,
again.
guilty. That's my plea.
Are you under the influence of drugs or alcohol?
No, Your Honor.
Will the people please state the evidence against the defendant?
On November 2nd, as the record states, a dispatcher received an emergency call that Kendall Slater reported that she'd been attacked and drugged, and that her minor child had been abducted again by Greenlee Smythe. And finally, the sworn affidavit of the defendant that her accusations were false.
These are very serious charges, Miss Slater. Are you aware of the penalties involved?
Your Honor, the people and the counsel for the defense have entered into a plea agreement. The Commonwealth recommends a prison term of 2.5 to 5 years, all to be served during a period of probation, along with substantial community service.
And who cooked up the community service plan without informing the court?
I'm sorry, Your Honor, this hearing came up rather quickly,
It's okay.
and I didn't...
I get it. But why be so lenient?
Extenuating circumstances.
And those would be?
Your Honor, the defendant committed these acts while under extreme emotional duress, and the defense can demonstrate that Kendall Hart
No,
Slater
I knew
acted...
exactly what I was doing. I knew it was illegal. I wanted Greenlee Smythe to rot in hell.
I implicate Greenlee Smythe in a fabricated crime, and how exactly did you go about it? Your own words. Start with why.
My son, Spike, was in a car accident. Greenlee Smythe was driving. My son sustained internal injuries, and they repaired his spleen. But when he was recovering in the hospital, they discovered something else. Kendall, get the hell away from my son. Don't you touch my son. No, stay the hell away from him.
Kendall! There's something wrong with Spike.
Spike is deaf.
I assumed that Greenlee's reckless driving had robbed my son of his ability to hear. He would be deaf for the rest of his life. I resolved to make Greenlee pay for what she did. So I pretended to reach out to her. I told her that I wanted to rebuild our friendship. And she seemed very eager to reconnect. I had access to Greenlee's penthouse, and I planted evidence little by little. I purchased 2 seats on a flight to the U.S. Virgin Islands, a forged birth certificate for her son, and packed a suitcase full of new clothes for Spike.
Your Honor, may I say something?
You may not.
My wife is dealing with some misplaced guilt, and I
Don't
think
force
maybe...
me to have you removed from my courtroom. Please, be seated. Mrs. Slater, on the night of the actual incident.
I stole chloroform from the hospital. And I asked Greenlee to meet me at the boathouse. I pretended that I needed a friend to talk to about Spike's upcoming cochlear implant surgery. She was happy to meet me. She was kind and supportive and unsuspecting. Then I pretended to get an emergency phone call. I told Greenlee that my husband, Zach, had been hurt. So I asked her to stay with Spike at the boathouse. I insisted she stay exactly where she was. When she was tending to my son, I hid close by. I reported that Greenlee drugged me and snatched my boy right out of my arms. Then I chloroformed myself so that the police would find me. When they showed up, I swore that Greenlee had kidnapped my son.
You framed an innocent woman, subjected her to false arrest, squandered valuable police hours, resources of the justice system to satisfy your lust for revenge?
Your Honor, if I may interject
No,
in my client's
Mr.
defense.
Montgomery, you may not. What prompted you to finally tell the truth?
Because of my false accusations, Greenlee panicked and ran. And she almost died.
So you were ultimately motivated by pity?
I also discovered my son had been losing his hearing gradually over a long period of time, not from the accident. So Greenlee Smythe had nothing to do with my son going deaf. Greenlee Smythe isn't guilty of anything, and I'm here to clear her name.
I suppose that you should be commended for finally setting the record straight, but frankly, Mrs. Slater, I am unimpressed with your belated impulse to confess. You staged a reprehensible hoax on Miss Smythe and the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania.
I realize that now. Greenlee Smythe doesn't belong in prison.
And what prompted this so-called revelation, Mrs. Slater?
I can actually answer that, Your Honor.
And you are?
Greenlee Smythe.
Your Honor, I'd like to move for a short recess.
Please just sit down, Mr. Montgomery.
Your Honor, I need to confer with my client.
I know, but I need to get to the bottom of this. Miss Smythe, will you please come forward?
No. Greenlee, stop. No, please don't do this, Greenlee, come on.
Bailiff, will you swear in Miss Smythe?
What is your name?
Greenlee Smythe?
I object, Your Honor.
Be quiet and sit down.
Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Now, you obviously have, or you think you have, information bearing on this case.
Yes, Your Honor, I do.
Proceed.
Your Honor, it happened 2 years ago. Kendall Slater is my best friend. I was desperate to have a child with the man I was married to at the time. My husband didn't want to have one, but I was determined to conceive.
Miss Smythe, the story seems far afield from the issues we're weighing today.
I know, Your Honor, but the fact is we wouldn't be here if it wasn't for a series of events that happened in a fertility clinic a very long 2 years ago. My rage, my bitterness, my public threat to sue for custody for Ryan and Kendall's son, my obsession with wanting to have Ryan Lavery's child, the fact that I virtually stalked Kendall and her children when I was told to stay away. All of these things made Kendall believe that I was planning on kidnapping her baby. I wasn't, but even I could see why she would believe that.
Your Honor, if I may address the court.
Are you finished, Miss Smythe?
Yes, I am.
All right, Mr. Montgomery, but keep it brief.
I will, Your Honor. Your Honor, my client's fears for her son Spike were compounded by extreme physical and emotional stresses. The accident, Spike's life-threatening injuries, his deafness, his subsequent surgeries, and of course, Kendall's own emergency C-section. Her son Ian's premature birth, and the fact that he spent the first few weeks of his life at the brink of death. All of these factors combined to put my client in a vice-like grip of terror. She was literally traumatized, Your Honor. This counsel implores this court to consider these facts. The fact that she was under extreme emotional duress and that she is here, despite the fact that she could lose her freedom, so that she can tell the truth.
You and counsel are in accord that Miss Slater should get off with a slap on the wrist.
Your Honor, I wouldn't exactly describe it in those words. Long probation and community service.
Light penalties for egregious acts. I'm going to adjourn to review the case. Principal should remain on site. I'll be delivering my ruling very shortly.
All
Court is now in
rise.
recess.
Thank you. But all I did was tell the truth. I mean, you left out something that would send me to trial.
No, Greenlee, don't bring it up. Don't.
But Kendall, I did take Spike that night. The night of the accident, I did. And you told everyone all the bad things you did, but you left out that I almost ran away with your son.
Emotional duress is a catch-all excuse for a staggering range of heinous acts. I'm not inclined to indulge the self-pitying of whining criminals. However, in this case, the wronged individual has made a persuasive case for her tormentor. Miss Smythe's plea, on behalf of Mrs. Slater, has impressed me a great deal. So, reluctantly, I am going to accept the plea agreement. Mrs. Slater, I am sentencing you to 5 years to be served on probation, a $50,000 fine, and 500 hours of community service. Do not let me see you in my court again.
All rise.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you.